Hey guys, we are in Genesis 50. This is a couple days later than I was planning on doing it New Year's Eve. Sorry about that. Just kind of how the week fell. But we are in Genesis 50. We're finishing up Genesis, and then this week I actually started reading the year of the Bible that we're doing this year, and this video specifically for this year will be in the New Testament, right? So next week we'll talk about the first several chapters of Matthew. And then we'll kind of go through the New Testament on this video this year. So Genesis 50, we're finishing out the book of Genesis, all 50 chapters done. Congratulations, you did it. A couple things, Jacob dies, and they're going to bury him. This is important for a couple reasons. A, you see that the family of Abraham, his descendants, really have blessed the nations like God said that they would. Not all of the nations, but Egypt enough to where they honor him in his burial. They treat him like a king, like he's a king in his burial, right? And so you see that they brought blessing on this nation as a kind of foreshadows what Jesus is going to do for all nations. And it also, him getting treated as a king, right, kind of foreshadows Jesus as well as our king coming to bless all of the nations. And as they take him back, because he asked them, remember, to take him back from Egypt to the promised land and bury him there. And that foreshadows the Exodus happening, right? God's people leaving Exodus, going into the promised land. So we see some foreshadowing happening here in Genesis 50, which is important. But there's really two things I want to focus on specifically for us in Genesis 50 this morning. After they return from burying his dad, his brothers are worried about, okay, now that our dad's gone, is Joseph gonna want to get back at us for what he did to him? Is he holding a grudge against us? Is he gonna repay us for all of these things, right? Are we gonna have to suffer? So they went to him, told him, hey, our dad said you need to forgive us, but we'll be your slaves, right? Because he's in the place of God for them, right? He's like in this place where what he says goes. And Joseph says something really, really important. He says, Joseph said to them, don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? And here's why that's important. When he says, am I in the place of God, he's doing a couple of things, I think. The first thing he's doing is letting them know that revenge and vengeance is not the job of humanity. That repaying individuals or getting justice on individuals or our own vengeance and revenge towards individuals, that doesn't belong to us. That belongs to God. As a matter of fact, that's really what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is not between you and another person. That's reconciliation. Forgiveness is, I know that there's been this offense against me, but instead of me taking revenge, instead of me getting vengeance, I'm going to give it to God. That's what forgiveness is. I'm just going to hand this over to God. This isn't mine. I'm not in the place of God. I'm not God. So that's one of the things that Joseph is doing there. Revenge and vengeance is not mine. That's God's job. I'll let God worry about the consequences and the fallout of all of this. I'm just going to trust in him, and I'm going to love him, and I'm going to love you well. That's basically what Joseph is telling his brothers here. The other thing I think it's doing here is, one of the things that we have to understand is we have to understand who we are, and we have to understand who God is. We have to understand that God is in control and we're not. That God is sovereign and we're not. And so one of the ways that we're going to live a life of peace and joy in 2025 and as we, in 2024 into 2025 is letting God be God and being okay that we're not God, right? Like we need to let God be God and be okay that we're not God. We are not God. Be who God created you to be. Be who you are. Be who God has called you to be. Don't try to be somebody different. Don't try to be somebody else, including God, right? Let God be in control. Let God be sovereign. Let God providentially work things out. You don't have to. Feel some freedom that you don't have to be God because you're not God. He is. You're not. Be who you're created to be, who you're intended to be, who God has gifted you to be, and then let God be God, right? Joseph is okay letting God be God. He understands, I am in this place of authority, yes, but this place of authority is not for me to operate like I'm God. This place of authority is for me to serve and to help the people under me, right? Not to play God in their lives because I'm not God. So let's let God be God. Let's let him be in control. We don't have to be. The other thing I want to look at in Genesis 50, it says this. After he says, am I in the place of God? He says, you planned evil against me, but God planned it for good to bring about the present result, the survival of many people. And this is one of the things I love about the way that God works. God can take anything, any circumstance, any situation, even when somebody intends it for evil in our lives, God can take it and can use it for good. God can turn it around for his glory, for our good, for the good of other people, for our joy. God can do all of that no matter what the situation and the circumstances is. And Joseph says, hey, this is what God did here. It's okay, right? It's okay. What you did is okay. I'm going to hand that over to God because I have seen God use this. I've seen God use this significantly. God has saved the Egyptians and this family as a result of his brother's actions. God can use anything and turn anything into good, right? And that should bring us some hope today because God's in control and we're not. We don't have to be God because he is God. And we can trust the fact that no matter what circumstance or situation we're in, God can turn around and has the ability to use it for good and for him to get the glory if that's what he wants to do. And so we can trust God in this year. And so let's be people who realize who we are and who we're not. Let's let God be God. Let's be okay with who we are. Let's let God be in control and God be sovereign and trust that even in the worst circumstances and situations, God can bring good out of those things. And that should give us a lot of hope as we end 2024 and get into 2025. I love you guys. Congratulations. We made it through the book of Genesis. We'll see you back next week as we start the New Testament this year.